Hey guys, it's Jan Chess24. In this video I want to have a look at the first game of the finale of the prestigious FIDE Grand Prix played in Riga in Latvia. The second of 4 FIDE Grand Prix this year, an event where the first 2 top finishers qualify for the candidates tournament. The tournament where the next challenger for world champion Magnus Carlsen will be found. The point system is complicated, but it does obviously help in this knockout event to get to the grand finale, and the 2 players that have achieved that are Monsieur Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the French number 1, against Mamedyarov, the Azeri number 1. Here we see them. Mamedyarov had a rough 2019, fell all the way from 2.820 to 2.750, but he seems to be back in this knockout format. He has defeated 3 opponents in a row. He beat Dubov, he beat Duda. He did not find another guy with Do, but he also made it past Wesley So in the semifinals. While Maxime Vachier-Lagrave did beat David Navarra, Veselin Topalov, and Alexander Grishuk in the semifinals. MVL, as everyone calls him, is struggling a bit historically against Mamedyarov. Has lost 6 tournament games, only beat him once, so this is a tough matchup for him, and he starts with the black pieces in game number 1, the game that we will be looking at right here, right now. Mamedyarov goes for 1d4, the Azeri, that's his favorite move, and if you play 1d4 against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, you know what you will get. It will be the Gruenfeld, the French number 1. Maybe the most consistent or least flexible, however you want to call it, in his openings. He always plays the Najdorf, always plays the Gruenfeld at the highest level, and therefore this could very much be expected. c4, g6, knight c3, d5. Has to be said that even if you can expect it, many people over the last 10 years really didn't know what to do against the Gruenfeld and didn't touch it. The Gruenfeld has a stellar reputation, but recently people have started going there again. Magnus Carlsen has played a couple interesting games against both these guys, against Mamedyarov and MVL on the white side of the Gruenfeld, and MVL has appeared somewhat more vulnerable than he used to in his last game against Magnus, so maybe that inspired Mamedyarov to try his luck here as well, although it has to be said that Mamedyarov does go his own way pretty quickly. This line is played. This is arguably the main line of the Gruenfeld. White occupies the center, the knights get exchanged. White wants to consolidate the center, then use his extra space, and ideally maybe one day create a passed pawn on the d-file, while black wants to fight against this powerful white center. Go bishop g7, go c5, go knight to c6. If there's a knight coming to f3, go bishop g4, pin it, and try to undermine, and ideally win a pawn in this white center, if not force some concessions. So that's the simplified version of the strategic fight ahead. Many a theoretical line has been built around this fight. The move that Mamedyarov played is not one of the main moves, although it had already been discussed between these 2 players, so probably not a big surprise. But Mamedyarov goes for queen a4 check, which goes against a lot of things that we are told, like don't get your queen out early, don't give checks for the sake of giving checks, and so on and so forth. Indeed, it's not the main move, but as we will see in a second, it's far from pointless. The main lines here are knight to f3, c5, and recently Magnus has played bishop e3, rook b1, always has mainline stairs as well, getting out of this diagonal, while bishop c4 is another classical fan favorite, intending to put this knight on e2, not on f3. So, what's the point of queen a4 check? Basically, we've seen what black wants. He wants c5, knight c6, short castles, bishop to g4. And queen a4 check is saying, okay, you can parry this check in many ways, but none of those are ideal. If you go c6, this pawn is not going to c5 anytime soon. If you go knight d7, this knight is not coming to c6 to put pressure on the center. If you go queen d7, this bishop is not coming to g4 to undermine a knight on f3. And if you go bishop d7, the bishop is sort of blocking the queen's view towards the c5 pawn, and also after queen to a3. It might be hard for you to get the c5 move in. So no move is perfect. MVL in the end does decide to play queen d7, which is also what he had been playing in the past. Personally, I think I like knight d7 somewhat better. I don't want to get too heavily into theory, but it typically leads to lines like this. When after bishop g4, I thought black has fairly decent chances of equalizing. Rook d1, bishop f3, white has to go gf, some move like e6. I thought black was pretty much in business because of the weakened king, while if instead of rook d1 you go bishop g5, there is the option to simplify by taking here. Anyway, that's another theoretical line. MVL prefers the move queen to d7, after which practice has shown that the endgames are sort of okay for black after queen takes d7. So no surprise that Mamedyarov does not exchange queens. He goes for the move queen to a3 here. Once again saying, my queen now makes it a bit harder for you to get in c5. Also, this might look not so relevant, but it matters. The queen has vacated the d1 square, so if white finishes development, knight f3, bishop e2, short castles, a rook will be sitting very pretty on d1, staring down the black queen on d7. Both players already had this position on the board against each other. Their bishop b5 was played, not so much intending to win the queen, but provoking c6 before withdrawing. I think c6, bishop d3 was the course of that game, which in the end ended peacefully. This time around we see queen to a3. The players make logical moves, b6, preparing c5, which black needs also. Now that the bishop can no longer go to g4, he wants to go to b7. Hit the e4 pawn. Knight f3, bishop b7, bishop d3, covering the pawn, castles, castles, and c5. So far so good. So far also a position that Maxim Vachier-Lagrave already had on the board in a game against Sebastian Bogner. In that game, rook to d1 was played, but Mamedyarov has come prepared, and he plays a stronger move, or in a very interesting move at the very least, bishop to f4. First of all, this is a flexible move. White does not reveal if he wants to go rook a d1, rook fe1, rook a c1, rook f d1. None of the above. If he just wants to go d5 next move, he keeps a lot of options open. And he puts some pressure on black by putting this bishop on this very active square, where it relevantly also controls the c7 square, which we will see in a line soon could become a juicy home for a white rook. The question is, isn't this losing a pawn? Can black take this pawn? And MVL decides against it. He does take once, cd, cd, but now he does not grab it with the bishop, after which the critical line, I've checked this a bit because it looked critical to me to take the pawn, runs something like knight d4, queen takes e7, regaining the pawn, queen takes d3, queen takes b7, material is equal, knight a6 keeps it that way by defending that rook. But turns out even this simplified position is still more pleasant for white. Like rook a d1, knight c5, rook d3, knight b7. My computer insists that rook a3 is a very clever move, pinning black down to the defense of the a7 pawn. Here after, let's say, knight c5, f3. White is better. Black must suffer. It is probably a draw with best play, but white can squeeze for a while, and that's a result of good home preparation. Nowadays you can't really win out of the opening, but if you ask questions and then the resulting position is not even a dead draw, but somewhat unpleasant, that is a pretty good outcome. So I believe that Mamedyarov did his homework well here and caught MVL with this bishop f4 move, at the very least on the wrong foot. If after cd, cd you decide not to take on d4, as MVL does, then probably c takes d is not a great move in the first place. This is painting a bit with a broad brush, but generally black would prefer to keep the tension here and not go cd unless it yields direct benefits. So I think if you aren't going to take the pawn, you should play a move like e6, some rook goes to d1, let's say rook f d1, and now have a look around. It's not a very pleasant position either, but at least this e6 might impede d5 for a moment. Now you can play cd, cd, rook c8. I understand, I just said you should delay e6. You should delay cd. But here, running a bit out of options. Another move that could be considered is knight to c6, putting pressure on the central construction. White would go d5, and knight to a5 with another sort of typical Gruenfeld situation, where I guess white is better, rook d1 or rook e1, and focus on the center. Black doesn't have that much counterplay, but similar structures have certainly been played by Gruenfeld players in the past. And I prefer both of those to what Maxim did in the game, which is c takes d, and now knight to c6, which looks textbook, putting pressure on the d4 pawn. The pawn is pinned, and so on and so forth. The problem is, it's not really pinned, and I'm pretty sure this is not hard for Maxim to see. White can go d5. The point being that if black were to take this rook, bishop a1, d takes c6, anything recaptures. Rook takes a1, white picks up 2 pieces for a rook, and in such a position the 2 pieces are just way too superior to the rook. This is just a winning position for white. He would attack the black king. Black has no chance to defend. So instead, after d5, MVL had to move the knight. He decides on knight a5, but a knight on the rim is dim in this case, and knight a5, rook ac1, we can see the black pieces are just not well placed to do battle. The bishop can't go anywhere, rook c7 is a threat, and this knight is very far from reaching an outpost on c4. So this has really gone badly for Maxim. Maybe knight d4 was a better option, but such a position is unpleasant for black too, who has not managed to challenge the white pawn center. And space does matter if black doesn't generate an initiative targeting these pawns. Still, I would prefer this to knight a5 as in the game. After rook c1, rook fc8, rook c7 had to be parried. Mamedyarov plays a move that I liked. I'm not sure if it's objectively best, but I thought it pronounces how bad the black position is here. He just goes h3, saying, do you think I will just make a little luft and stop you from ever going queen g4? I have king h2 if I need it. I don't think you can improve your position very much. And it's true. MVL decided to play e6, looking for counterplay against the center, but after d6, this white pawn is very strong, a very far advanced pass pawn, thorn in the flesh, so this position is just really bad. I looked at exchanges trying to ease the pain. Takes, rook c8, let's say takes, bishop takes, but the position remains pretty bad for black. After knight e5, queen d8, bishop b5. So hard for black to generate any play. This knight is still out of play. e6. Now knight c6 would create a very powerful passed pawn. It's just a sad situation. And understandable that MVL did not want to go for this. But again, he has the same problem. He's making it worse. He goes e6, white plays d6. Now knight e5 is a threat, e5 could be a threat. This pawn can't really be challenged. MVL plays f6, stopping knight e5 and hoping to get an e5 himself. But it is met by some nice preparation. Well, preparation maybe as well, but at this point we're out of preparation and into calculation, by some nice calculation from Mamedyarov. He goes e5. Of course, that move is high on the list of moves you consider. Adding support, not allowing e6 to e5, but you have to see what you want to do after bishop takes f3, which was played in the game. And Mamedyarov's point is that he has a Zwischenzug. E takes f6, both bishops hanging, and white just dominates. gf3, fe5 would be a lot less clear, but ef6 is fantastically strong. And the black position is just in ruins, which might look strange because material is equal. I think after bishop g2, black would even win a pawn, let's say king g2, bishop f6. But here, after bishop a6, if we study this position, we can see how bad it is. Knight on the rim, not entering the action. Rook c7 is coming. Black can't challenge for the c-file. Sooner or later, the d-pawn, combined with the weakness of the black king, will decide the game. You can see it by the engine bar. Computer is incredibly happy here for white, and with good reason. MVL obviously understands all that. Instead tries bishop takes f6, not going after the g2 pawn, but after g takes f3. The situation remains desperate for him. e5, bishop d2. Another quiet move, just pronouncing that white is in no hurry. The knight will remain bad, the king will remain bad. the bishops will eventually start ruling the board. And the pawn on h3 might look vulnerable, but if it gets taken, bishop e4, the black position just collapses as well. So MVL instead tries rook takes c1, rook takes c1. Here once again, if we have a look at queen takes h3, bishop e4, let's say rook d8. The more you look at this position, the clearer it becomes how hopeless it really is for black, because he's essentially a piece down and has no way to deal with this passer. Queen e6, let's say, runs into bishop d5, rook c7 is coming, king g7, rook c7 really does not help. King h8, let's say, many ways lead to Rome. Most forceful is queen d5, intending rook c7, queen f7. It's just lost. And what happened in the game does not change that verdict. MVL goes rook c8, still hoping that one day his knight can re-enter the action. But after rook takes c8, queen takes c8, Mamedyarov keeps playing calmly and not allowing any counterplay. This is a very nice controlled power display by Mamedyarov. King g2, defending the h3 pawn, because why not? Knight c4 is still not really an option. Gets punished in many ways, but most brutally by d7. Queen d7, bishop takes c4 check. So there's just nothing black can do. MVL tries bishop d8, but it's obviously a sign things aren't great. Bishop e4, just coordinating the pieces. The queen wants to d3, and then bishop or queen want to go to d5. Nothing works. Knight c4 once again loses because of bishop d5 check, king h8, and d7. Similar trick here. Queen d7 is met by queen f8 checkmate. And if black chooses g7 instead, queen takes a7 check. Unpleasant as well. So the French number one goes queen e6, but after queen d3, white keeps in control, threatens bishop d5. The king has to vacate the diagonal. King g7, bishop c3. The bishop is greeting him on his new diagonal, and the situation remains hopeless since the knight is out of play. I might have said this once or twice. Queen f6 played, king to f1, sidestepping any potential checks on g5 and asking black to make a move. And turns out that black had seen enough, made no further moves, and Vachier-Lagrave resigned here, which might look premature, but if you try making a move, you understand. This knight doesn't have a square, it's taken everywhere. This bishop doesn't have a square, it's taken everywhere. That means we're down to pawns, king and queen. Pawn moves don't make much sense. b5 gets taken, a6 gets taken, g5, h6, h5 also do not really help. So queen moves, queen e6 keeps control of the pawn, but is pretty well met by f4, allowing this bishop to join the action. Black tries to defend against that. Bishop f6, fe, bishop e5. The d pawn wins the day. So that doesn't help. If you move the king, let's say king h8, there's many options, but most brutal, just queen d5, targeting this pawn. There's nothing black can do. Well, yeah, any of these moves, queen d5 gets the job done as well. So a clean, crisp victory for the white pieces against the Gruenfeld again, and MVL might have some work on his hands, because this, has happened to him twice in a month now. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen, who won this game, and Mamedyarov, who won the game we just saw, are players you can very much lose to with black. But this d-pawn destroying him so easily in Gruenfeld's will mean something's a bit broken in the MVL lab, and work has to be done. As for Mamedyarov, he takes the lead in this finals. He showed us a nice idea against the Gruenfeld, this queen a4 check. Just, messing a bit with black's most natural setup, and it rewarded him with a nice, effortless looking victory in this first finals game. That means MVL has to strike back now, needs to win a game, or the match is over. Thank you guys for watching. See you on chess24.com.